listening to Making Data Simple, where we make the world of data effortless, relevant, and yes, even fun.
Thanks for listening to the Making Data Simple series. You can find us on, IBM's Big Data Hub and under Analytics Insights on iTunes and now Android Stitcher. So this is a series under Analytics Insights. A little bit confusing, but it's that Making Data Simple series under Analytics Insights. So you found us, and I appreciate it. This is Al Martin here. I run hybrid data management at IBM, and as an aside, I am a podcast enthusiast. And Kate and Fatima and others are our producers. I think we're somewhere near the 40th recording or something. I don't know if my count's right, but time flies when you're having fun. I hope the listening audience is having as much fun as we are. Today's guest is Jill Lellis, and today's topic is data visualization. The interesting thing about Jill as a guest today, I'm happy to report that we had a previous podcast with a gentleman by the name of David Kearns. And I think the title of that podcast was Hit a Home Run Using AI and Machine Learning. Well, he attended a HOLT CAT conference and heard Jill speak and was so impressed. See, I'm setting Jill up right now. He was so impressed that he recommended her for this Making Data Simple podcast. And here we are today. And Jill so kindly accepted. So Jill, welcome to our humble podcast. And I would like to allow you to introduce yourself.
Well, thank you. So I met David at a large data and analytics conference hosted by CAT Corporate, and many of the dealer network participants were there, and I spoke on data integrity and data visualization, and we kind of connected from there. So my background is market research and cognitive behavior and social sciences. Data viz and analytics have kind of always been an interest for me. When I was in grad school, I worked in a physiology and eye tracking lab, and we were doing analytics before it was actually like a master's track. And so my thesis focused on attention to location, movement, size, and color using eye tracking and survey research methodology. And so it's interesting that kind of led me into my role now within HOLT, because there's so much that we can use the data for, and there's so much that visualization can add to the insights that we're giving to our end users.
Man, that's like a mouthful. You're like a data visualization guru, but you've also got cognitive in there and everything else. Very impressive. What school did you go to, by the way, to get all those degrees?
I went to Texas Tech.
Yeah,
so Reckham.
Very good. All right, Texas Tech. They're in the Big 12. I went to Kansas University. I hope you lose when we play Kansas, but I'll vote for you everywhere else. How's that?
Sounds good.
First thing I got to ask you, you must have made an impression in being a keynote speaker. What are your tricks? What is your secret to being such a dynamic speaker? Obviously, you got the visualization, so you got that background. That may help. But what are your secrets? I can always use some help.
So I think the factor helps a lot because data just kind of ignites my fire, and I think you can tell when you're passionate about something. When you speak to it, you can capture other people's attention. And so I have this curiosity in me that just kind of makes me go down all of these different rabbit holes and find more and more information and learn more and more. I think that helps. And also just being completely honest with the fact that I am a nerd and I am a little bit awkward. And apparently people find that a little endearing.
No, that's right. I mean, being approachable, being authentic, being trustworthy. I think that's what you just said. So tell us a bit about HOLT CAT. I don't, and honestly, I don't know that the audience would probably associate HOLT CAT with some of the technologies you just referenced in deep technologies, if you will. But I'd like to learn a little bit about HOLT CAT. What do you sell? Where's the headquarters located? Just some surrounding flavor, if you will, around HOLT CAT.
So we are the largest cat dealer in North America. I like to liken a cat dealer and cat corporate to kind of like the car dealership industry, right? So you think about cat corporate is the manufacturer, and HOLT CAT, we're a dealer. We sell the big iron and we also service it. And so we have pretty much everything from sales, rent, and lease to product support, service offerings for our customers from the Red River to the Rio Grande. We have 118 counties in Texas. I am located in the Dallas area, and our headquarters is in San Antonio.
So Texas every day, all the time. Fantastic. Private company, right? Is that true?
Yes, it is.
Sure, it's private because it's a dealer. Okay.
It's family. Yeah.
Family. Nice. What do you consider, with the experience that you just laid out, what's your title, if I could ask?
Yeah. So my title is Senior Data Analyst, but my role is more of a hybrid. So I do everything cradle to grave. So I do all the data engineering, I do all the visualization, the validating, everything. And so it's really fun. If you're a big nerd like me, having a role that can let you do all aspects of data is just so fascinating and exciting. And it's never the same thing every day, which is really great for me.
Yeah, and I think people that are listening know that I'm a nerd. So you're in kindred spirits here. What are the day-to-day challenges in the area of focus that you have as a senior data analyst in HOLT CAT? I mean, give me an example of your day. I know you're everywhere, but how does your day start? Where does it go? What do you spend most of your time doing?
My day starts by checking the emails because we have some managers that like to send awesome ideas at like 10 o'clock at night. I will get that in the morning. So typically I like to plan out my week. I'm pretty project focused. So most of my day is finishing or completing and working on big projects that I have. And so because our group is situated in marketing, we support all aspects of the business, which is awesome because we get to work on projects just for product support and service, just for sales and rental, and then also projects that are on an enterprise wide. So I also do all of our enterprise metrics reporting for like the big wigs at the company. I would say the challenges that I see in my role, probably change management is a big one. A lot of people are used to old school reporting. I just want that in Excel. I just want this. Bringing them along into our visual journey has been quite an interesting process because we have some that are early adopters and then we have a lot that are still laggards. And so trying to show them that, look, if you look at your data this way, it'll save you so much time and then you can be more efficient at your actual job, which is not looking at a spreadsheet. It is making the business better. Another challenge I would say would be we create and do all of our data ourselves. And so before I can even put anything into a data viz tool, I make sure that the data is valid and accurate. And that's one of the biggest things about me is that I don't want to send anything out unless I have validated it. And what's interesting about that is that sometimes doing that validation can lead you on a whole nother rabbit hole because then you see, wow, well, why is this data this way? Like the data is valid, my source is correct. There must be some sort of process that's broken. And how do we address it? How do we bring the data to somebody's attention without being like aggressive and be like, well, why are you doing it this way? Because I can tell you, people don't typically like that question. So rephrasing it, saying, well, how is this affecting the business is typically better well received than asking those why questions. And putting them in a data viz tool can be very, very helpful as long as your data is valid. So that's probably the most important thing.
I think one thing you prove here within this dialogue we've already had is that every company is a tech company these days and can leverage the data. The question that ties into what you just outlined was, one thing I was going to ask you is why HOLT CAT? I mean, you could work anywhere in a technology company just the same with the experience that you outlined to begin the podcast. And what you've told me is the good thing is, and this is what I'd be attracted to as well, is it looks like you have, autonomy around data and you get an opportunity to do everything. It leads to part of the challenge that I'm sure you have is a culture change within that business. So, I mean, I kind of picture you going into a dark room, taking all this data, then coming out and then being able to, you're going to have to visualize it such that it's easily consumable. You can make your point and then draw upon solutions and actions quickly. Otherwise, you're going to have an audience sitting there in front of you that's used to maybe old school legacy types of solutioning, like give me the old report. So tell me does that work?
It's funny that you mentioned the dark room because the way my office is set up, I typically work with my lights off, and it is my little cave. And so a lot of times when people walk by my office, they don't even know I'm in here unless they peek in my window because it is my little dark cave. Yeah, that is kind of how it works. I go into my dark cave, I come up with the data feeds, and then I put it into a visualization tool. I make it consumable because the most important thing I think about a viz is that if I give you a crosstab and I say, okay, what are you seeing within market share? Which county has the best? It's very difficult for the human eye to discern that. And so if you put it in a viz tool, you can start by putting it in a bar graph, right? And then you can sort by the largest market share. And then you can say, okay, well, this county has. But what if you want to look at the top 5? And what if you want to see what region they're in? What if you want to see the relative location to each other? How do you do that with bar graphs? That's when you put it into a map, right? And then right off the bat, you can see that. So what takes the human eye a couple of minutes to discern in the viz tool would have taken a lot longer in a crosstab function. And so I think that is part of the power of visualization, is that you can come to those conclusions. And it has been basically going back to the business unit saying, hey, is this helpful? Is this what you want to see? Sometimes they say, no, just send me the Excel data sheet. Other times they say, yeah, this is actually very insightful. It helps me see what I'm wanting to see. So why am I at HOLT? Well, we just had a change of ownership. We have new owners now. They are also millennials. And you're right, I do have autonomy. I have the great advantage that I've been able to really do some pivotal changes in the company that have never been done before because we have support from the owners. I have support from my team. And it's very, very freeing to not have a box to be stuck in.
So are you focused mostly on business direction, or are you also focused on operational optimizations that you see within said business?
Well, a little bit of both. So it depends on the business unit that I'm working with. A lot of the things that we do is we produce reports for outside units. So some of our predictive reporting capabilities go to our sales team to help them increase market share. As far as operational, I'm working on a large project with our rental group to see how can we make our rental fleet more efficient and how can we make better choices about how we service the machines before we sell them to make the most profitability. So I think that's one of the things that my role has that is unique in a company, is that I get to work with both operational and business-focused units, and it's really fun.
Yeah, that's what I would imagine. I mean, I think above all, what you're telling me is that you're in a position of influence, or in other words, influence is very important in your position. And I often say leadership equals influence, because I got to believe you've got a ton of people in the field that are very persuasive, that think they already know the answers without the data to back it. And so you've got to be prepared, do your research, and actually get that visualization to make it very consumable so that you can take the next step and you don't get derailed and get pushed back into spreadsheets. The interesting thing is I've got a very good friend that owns a Vermeer dealership. That's much smaller machines, but when I talk to him, it's kind of the same challenges that you've outlined here just as well. I want to get back into data visualization and talk about that specifically. I got a couple of where the industry is going questions for you. Just curious here, because I talked to him about this just as well. So right now you're engaged, or HOLT CAT is engaged in the selling, servicing, and renting of these machines, large machines, large iron. What do you think is next for this industry? Because as I am talking to the friend that I referred to, we often talk about this because the disruption that we're going through is going to impact everyone. In fact, I was just reading I'm getting off topic here a little bit, but I was reading the other day, we haven't been through this many major innovations since like late 1800s. You had telephone, electricity, and the internal combustion engine. Now you have genomic sequencing, which is essentially DNA. You got automation, robots, 3D printing. You've got energy storage. The internal combustion engine is now going to the grid. You've got the next generation internet. You got AI that fits in with that. Deep learning, could be called software 2.0. You got blockchain. Now, I know that you're a traditional equipment seller, But I've got to believe that the world that's being based off the client experience and a subscription economy has to have an impact on your business and is driving it, in new directions.
So I have worked in a cat dealer for the past 6.5 years. And already within that time, we've seen a big shift, and like the life cycles are changing, and not even just rentals, but some customers are shifting their focus from, rather than buying or leasing units, they're just renting them because they don't want to pay for the service on those units. And so, I think things are going to be changing. I think a lot of the way that the customers that do purchase machines, the way that they purchase parts, I think that's going to change, because with the invention of drones and other technology, why would you need to wait? If you are in San Antonio and you need a part that's in Dallas, why would you need to wait 2 days for that to come, right? I see all of that changing, and technology is a huge thing that's driving that change. And then we have to, as dealers, we have to keep up with that, or we're not going to stay in line with our competition. As far as, there are like rental houses, I don't see that going away. I might just see the way that people consume that being a little bit differently. A lot of times, so certain products are interchangeable. So rather than buying one backhoe loader, someone could rent a skid steer and a dozer, or rent 2 different pieces of equipment, and instead of having one operator on that one machine that they've purchased, they could rent 2 machines and get 2 operators and have the job done much quicker. So I think a lot of things are going to be changing, and what does that look like? It'll be interesting to see.
I think we're going to see a seismic shift in the way these big equipment solve problems. Now, you talk about renting, parts delivery. I think all that lends itself to data being critical. So that brings us back to the data visualization. Let's talk more about that. So to me, visualization is always about storytelling, mixing art with science, if you will. And you referenced that earlier in terms of making the point very quick, consumable, and available to the naked eye, so you get the point very quickly, so you can take the next step in whatever direction you're trying to drive. But how do you see, if you could characterize visualization specifically, how do you see visualization in your business, and why is it so important?
Exactly, to hit on the point that you just made, we are blending science and art with the storytelling. Humans are meant to see things visually. If you go back to the caveman days, you see all of these drawings that they used to tell stories. So why should data be any different? If we have the ability to draw the user's eye to a specific piece of data that makes it quick and consumable, why wouldn't we do that? And one of my favorite examples to point out is just to show the importance of visualization. Have you heard of Anscombe's Quartet?
I don't know that I have. Maybe I should have. Nope.
Okay. Well, I highly recommend Googling it, because what it does is he was a statistician back in, I want to say, the 18 or 1900s, way before we were around. And he has 4 identical data sets. And when I say identical, I mean that all of their statistics are identical. So the means of Y, the means of X's, the variance of both Y's and X's, the correlations between X and Y, the linear regressions, and the coefficients are all equal. So if you looked at these tables of these 4 different data sets and you only looked at the summary statistics, you would think, okay, this is the same data. But when you graph it, it is completely different. Each one of those 4 data sets is a whole different line. And without that visualization, any user that would say, oh, well, they have the same mean, they have the same coefficient, they have all of the same stuff, so they must be the same, they must be telling the same story. But that's not actually true when you graph it out. And that's just one of my favorite examples of how visualization can help show the point that you're trying to make with data.
Yeah. What tools are you using for visualization today?
Because our data is so scattered across many different sources, we use visualization tools that can help us combine those. In any instances where I'm pulling out of the AS400, I like to have those feeds automated to my SQL server, and then I like to do the manipulation in that prior to loading it into a Viz tool. But the importance of those Viz tools, what they provide is that you can change things with color, you can change things with size, you can have text boxes that help illustrate your point, and you can basically guide the users through a story. And so any Viz tool that gives you the ability to look at many different charts and graphs, because you need different things for different data sets, right? Not all Viz is created equal. And so that's one of the things that our tool gives us the ability and the flexibility to change our data sets look after it's been consumed.
Are you adding any machine learning or AI for predictions into your study sets?
We're going that way. Right now, we're not, because our data is so dirty that we're spending so much time cleaning it. Machine learning is something that is on my project list of things to learn, but we're not there yet.
Look, I'm very happy with your answer. The reason I am is because you said it right. And I've said this on the podcast previously, where I've got many clients that are enamored by the shiny star or whatever of machine learning and AI, but they don't have their data right. They don't have trusted data. It's not cleansed. It's not a trusted source, et cetera, et cetera. As a result, they've got to get that straight to make sure that they're making the right decisions with machine learning, because if it's getting the wrong answers, it's just going to build upon those answers. You're going to get wrong results. So that's fine. I think that's kind of why we call at IBM, it's a ladder to AI. And as part of that ladder, you got to start at the bottom, which is data and governance, before you can move towards analytics, which it looks like you're already there, but then going further into AI. Look, we're a big believer at IBM in some of the tools. We got several analytics and data visualization tools like Cognos Analytics, Planning Analytics, Watson Analytics. I could keep going on that I would consider all in the visualization type of space. The question I do have is, can you give me examples of how visualization has bettered your business, some decisions you've come out with or been able to arrive at that you wouldn't have been able to achieve without that visualization?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So one of the first projects that I worked on here was helping, where are we going to put our next full service store? And so we were able to we combined all sorts of different data, and we used a little bit of predictive to see where we thought that the business was going to be going. And we were able to convince the owners that Georgetown is where our next store needs to go. And they had already had land a little bit south of there. And we were like, well, the data doesn't really support that. The data honestly supports Georgetown. That's probably one of my accomplishments here that I'm most proud of, is that, like, how cool is it that just little old me was able to help a $1 billion company pick where its next location was. So I think data and visualizing it on a map and showing where all of that stuff is, because especially in Texas, we have some big highways, right? And so if you are seeing that a lot of the construction is coming along those highways, then it just stands to reason that you'd want to put something on the I-35 corridor. And how would you know that if you didn't plop it on a map, right?
No, everything's big in Texas. I'm with you. So the saying goes. I was actually overseas, and I told them I was from the U.S., and we were talking, and I said, where do you want to visit? They said, Texas. I say, why? I said, because everything's big in Texas. I just want to see it. Very good. No, I understand. So now, is that part of the process? In other words, were you successful in such a way that now the business and the executives say, all right, we need to look at our next store, and Jill, you're up. We want you to do the analysis. That's where we're going to start. We're going to take what you have, and then we're going to go from there. Is that part of the process now, or are you still working to get that established as part of the paradigm that you guys go through?
Well, it is part of the process, and it's not necessarily just me that's going to be doing this. Like my boss did one for a park satellite location, and she used a lot of the same data sets that we used for the Georgetown store, but this was specific to product support and parts. And so that was one of the ones that she did about a month ago. And we have now another request for where is our next sales location going to be? And so more and more of those requests are coming, and it's awesome to see that some of our users are hungry for this kind of information, and it's cool that we can be a part of that.
Yeah. So you mentioned product support and parts. That's intriguing to me. So let's talk about service for a bit. I got to believe you're driving inefficiencies in your service because my limited knowledge in the business. I mean, that can either go very well or very wrong. I mean, you've either can drive high margins, you can drive loyalty in clients, or you can create a problem and it could bleed you to death. So any opportunities or any examples of where a visualization have really transformed your industry or transform your business in the area of service? Yeah,
I mean, honestly, we've been able to identify a lot of gaps in processes occurring in service by visualizing it, because it's funny that sometimes, like, you don't use a viz tool unless your data is valid first. That's like, I sound like I'm beating a horse to death on that point, but I cannot emphasize that enough. Your data has to be valid. But once you put the data in a viz tool, and if you start seeing something that looks really, really off, then you can start going and investigating that. And so a lot of our systems that feed into each other, obviously they're using that data that's coming out of the mainframe. And so if the data that's in there is crap, the systems that we're using as our reporting tools and our predictive opportunities and our CRM system, they're going to be taking that data, and it's not going to be accurate. For example, I will tell you about a project that we're working on. So in the service world, there is a way that our technicians can do a flat rate all. And typically on our work orders, you have a parts, labor, and miscellaneous line item. And a lot of our end users want to see the breakout by customer, what their spend is, parts, labor, and miscellaneous. If the technician uses the flat rate all, our CRM system, as well as one of our predictive tools from CAT Corporate called Olga, it doesn't know what to do with flat rate all. So it dumps it either in a bucket of miscellaneous, or it just doesn't include it in our values at all. It seems like this is one of those issues where I don't know why the processes are the way they are, and asking what benefit is it by the technicians using this flat rate all function versus actually putting in line items for the work orders, because at the end of the day, it's screwing up our metrics.
I get the feeling you're either loved or hated, because I would want somebody just like you to come in and analyze the data and not have the legacy processes in my brain that I'd want somebody like you not to know those processes so that you challenge everything. I kind of get,
you're
getting put in that position, which is great. I think everybody should have that position. Or you've hit on the value of trusted and data you can count on. So how are you cleaning that data today? Are you responsible for that as well?
So our team is, let me rephrase that. Our team is responsible for customer information records and salesman assignments and our machine population. So we have records of machine ownership for our customers, and those feed into a lot of our metrics that are tracked by CAT Corporate as well as internally. And so if those records aren't clean, our team is responsible for going in and making sure that they are clean. Now, when it comes to work order data, sales invoicing data, we have no direct input on that. However, we do just provide the facts, and hopefully that it will go down the ladder of influence and get processes to change. And you're right, we are either loved or hated, because a lot of the stuff that we're looking at has never been looked at before. And so it sometimes it feels like people are like, well, why are you looking in my cookie jar? I'm not looking to judge you. I am just showing you exactly what it is. I have no judgment whether it's good or bad. This is what the data is. And that's one of the things that I love about data is it doesn't have an opinion, and it doesn't look to prove itself right. It just is.
So are you, to cleansing that data, are you exporting and then importing back into a transactional system? Or are you pushing it to a data warehouse and cleaning it as you go? Just trying to get a little bit more insight in terms of at least how HOLT CAT is doing this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we go into the green screen. And so we are on AS400, and our system is called DBS. It was made probably before I was born, and it was done in all green screen. So we go into the maintenance menus of those systems, and we fix the actual records. So we go into, before the data is even pushed into our SQL server, we want to make sure that the record of source in our system is clean. So we recently did a project with one of our interns. We looked at machine store versus the store that the customer is transacting at most. And we made those changes because a lot of times when someone sets up the account, so say I'm in Irving and you own a company out of San Antonio. Well, I'm in Irving, so I put Irving as the store, but you're actually in San Antonio, right? So the only way we would know how to make that record more accurate is to do an analysis of the data and of your purchasing history. So if you're purchasing all of your parts, labor, and miscellaneous out of San Antonio, then your store of records should reflect that. So we go in and we manually make those updates. So it is a pain in the butt, but it is very, very much worth it because your data has to be your safe, trusted source.
So is that controlled within your team, or is it an adjacent team that's doing that? I mean, I don't know that it matters. We're just curious.
No, it's our team.
So you're doing both, and you do everything. So it doesn't surprise me that you're a good presenter, because what I was going to say previously is that, and this could potentially, I don't know, I guess get you in hot water with those you're presenting to. And that is, I find that visualization, it's one thing to come in and say, here are the results. It's another thing, and what I find when it really works is when somebody comes in and says, here's where we missed our targets. Now, it's still based on fact. It's still based on the data. You're not trying to look in somebody's cookie jar unnecessarily. But, visualization with the right leader and influencer that can take that information and then really point out via visualization, the actual activity that caused the problem. That's where the magic happens. And I got to believe that you're doing both, bringing the data and then talking to the activity that you see causing the problem, which results in the corrective action.
Yeah, and it's very, very critical the way you present the data, right? So like you said, you can frame your conversation two different ways and it will be received completely differently, whichever way you frame it. And so when I present data to executives, I don't have any of my knowledge showing, right? I just say, here's what we're seeing. And then I start asking them questions. Which store do you think has the best performance this quarter? Is that higher or lower than last quarter? Where can we improve? Rather than saying, man, sales are really sucky right now. You know what I mean? Like it's all about your tone and all about how you present the data, because some people can tend to get very defensive, especially when we have this level of intimacy with the data. You have to walk a fine line between knowing the answer and pointing them in the direction to get the answer.
Yeah, it's what I call Socratic negotiation. It's a method in which you lead them to the answer. And again, it's a manner of influence, like I said before. Let me ask you this question, and there's a reason I asked this. So it's not intended to be a trick question, but is it better to have accurate data or for the reports and visualization to look pretty?
Your reports can be beautiful, and if the data underlying it is crap, you will lose all credibility with that business unit forever. So that's why we spend so much time on validating our data. And I tell all of our interns, do not even put it in a Viz tool unless you validated it, because you want accurate data reporting, and you want to be able to tell them, if you're only looking at retail units, you need to tell them that, or they will make assumptions like, oh, this is everything. Well, this is wrong. So that's my stance on that is I would much rather have it be valid than have it be pretty. I mean, I want it to be both, right?
Yeah.
But
No, I get it. There's kind of like it kind of is a trick question. And then I think it needs to be both, but I think, the data accuracy will come to bite you either sooner or later. And you're right. You lose the trust of the organization, then they're going to just think you're presenting pretty charts and you're not going to have the influence that you need. The reason I say that is because I think one of the drawbacks with great visualization tools, and I'd like to think that IBM certainly has those, is that it can reinforce the impulse to, just present the information without thinking about the purpose, the goals, the objectives, and that kind of thing. And you've got to make sure that you've got that down. At one point in time, IBM, we were very concerned or maybe even overly concerned about the accuracy, which I still think is paramount. Don't get me wrong, but you've got to have design integrated with these products. So they are also, visually consumable so that you can get both. I know a lot of companies out there that have pretty graphs, but the complexity, at least for a software developer like myself, is to make sure that the accuracy backs it, because they go, I know clients that are coming to us from previous tools, and that's the major issue that they have, is that they had a pretty tool that was very quick and had a lot of different advantages from that perspective, but then they found out the accuracy was like 25% off, and before long that starts to to cut at you. You can't make a proper decision. All right, hey, look, I appreciate everything that you've brought to the table here. I thought this has been a very good discussion. Obviously, we need to do some business together, but we'll take that offline. I like to end each podcast with a few questions, kind of so the audience gets to know you. It's what I call the lightning round. And just real quick, I'm going to throw a few questions at you if you're game, and I can go anywhere with this. But hopefully you'll be game and give it a shot. Is that fair?
Sure.
Before I do, anything we left unsaid as it relates to data visualization, HOLT CAT, or anything else?
Well, one thing that I wanted to say was I think you made a really good point that there are limitations to the visualization tools. And I think in the future, they're probably going to be incorporating more of the predictive analytics in there. But right now, most of us are using separate tools for that. So some of us will use R, Python, or SPSS for predictive models, and then put those in the Viz program to make it pretty. So I just wanted to make that point that right now a lot of people are using different tools for the different aspects of what they're wanting to accomplish.
No, fair. Good. Very good point. Thank you. Anything else? Did we nail it?
I don't think so.
All right, good.
This has been really fun.
It is kind of fun, right? You get to learn, you just have a conversation. The only thing I've always say what we're missing here is some alcohol, some beer or something. That would make it even more.
Oh, that would make it fun, but a lot more F-bombs.
I can get in trouble. You're right. All right. So this section is called Get to Know Jill Lellis. All right. Just in a quick lightning round. Well, the first question is, I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you listen to this podcast?
Yes, I do.
All right. Do you have a favorite podcast? I got to test you.
Oh, well, okay. So David Kearns' podcast was really awesome, and I recommend that. And he spoke at our conference, and so we got a taste of that already. And what they're doing is awesome. And bonus, he's got a lovely Irish accent, so it's not boring at all. Another one that I really liked was Susara Heever. It's amazing to see other women in this space.
Nice. So two impressive points there. One, you passed the test. Secondly, you've got that name right. That's impressive.
Oh, great.
All right. So here's what I think you already answered this, but I'm going to ask this anyway. Do you? This is really putting you on the spot, but do you love your job, and why do you love your job?
I do, because I get to do different things every day, and I get to learn. So much learning.
The data? Is it what is it? What's the technical aspects of your job? Outside of just doing a little bit of everything and making business decisions, what's the technical part of it you love the most?
I love the fact that when I started at HOLT, I did not know any SQL programming. Now I do, and I am now learning R. And so the fact that I get to learn these different programming languages, and I get to learn how to actually use our data in them. And I get paid for it. So, I mean, it's pretty much a win-win, right?
Yeah, no. Look, people that are successful in this day and age are those that are continuous learners. And obviously that's where you are. How do you, speaking of learning, how do you stay on top of trends?
So I have a pretty large network in the data and analytics field. And so we have meetings within CAT. I have meetings in the Dallas. I'm in a user group here. There's a lot of other women in data in Dallas, and we are actually starting a women in data group here. So when I get more information, I'll send it to you so you can send it out to any of your people that might be in Dallas. I also do a lot of learning on my own. So I'm an Amazon Prime member, so I get books delivered to my house within 2 days, anytime I want. And I do udemy.com. It might be Udemy, however you say that. I purchase a lot of different courses to make sure that I am up on my game. I read blogs, I read a lot of different things, and I attend conferences, and I keep up with what other people are doing just to make sure I don't grow stagnant. Any
one or two books you'd recommend that I could put in the show notes as well?
There's always Competing on Analytics, which is, oh my goodness, I'm spacing on his name.
That's all right. We can get it later and put it in the show notes.
The Big Book of Dashboards, I recommend that one. You might, I don't know, it's a lot of like focus on Tableau, so I don't know if you'd want to put that in there, but, and also a lot of books on kind of working on diplomacy, because I am typically a very, very blunt person. And so I need to, rather than telling people that, this has been a lot of my development within the past couple of years, is to let them find the answers themselves rather than telling them. And so reading books like John C. Maxwell's Great Learners, Good Leaders Ask Great Questions.
Oh, nice. One of my favorite books by Maxwell was The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. I think it's, he talks about leadership being influence and really nothing more, nothing less, and then tries to prove out that point. So, look, I'll get that one. I haven't read that one. Any couple items that are on your bucket list in the future? Could be anything. Doesn't have to be tech.
Oh, man. I mean, I would love to work abroad one day.
Wow. Where do you want to work?
I mean, so my husband and I went to Ireland last summer, and it was beautiful and green. Oh my God, so green. I would love to live over there. It would be cool to live in Italy too. I don't know, anywhere where I can keep doing my data and keep teaching yoga. That would be great.
Nice. Well, HOLT CAT's going to be upset with us now, because you're probably going to get a ton of offers from folks in Ireland and elsewhere to say, come on over. The weather's great, even though it's a little bit chilly over there a lot of the time. But, look, they've got good golf courses if you like to golf. Hey, last question. I said 2, I meant 3. Where can the audience get a hold of you?
You can find me on LinkedIn, and I'll give you the link. You can find me on Twitter. You can find me on Instagram and on Facebook. I'll give you all of those links. All
right. We'll put them in our show notes. Jill, thank you. You've been a lot of fun to have on the podcast. I appreciate it. It has been a lot of fun. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. This has been lovely. And how freaking cool is it that I'm going to be on a freaking podcast? Like, that is the most awesome thing that I've ever done this year.
Wow. I feel privileged. Very good. So thank you, and enjoy Big Texas. HOLT CAT, will keep an eye out for that company. And look, like I said earlier, we're going to have to do some business together. Thank you so much. And for the listeners out there, until next time, hope you enjoyed it. Find us on LinkedIn, find us on Twitter, and there are many locations, like I started with, to get hold of this podcast. Thank you. Talk to you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Making Data Simple podcast, where we make data fun. Be sure to visit IBMBigDataHub.com/podcast to access the show notes and uncover even more great episodes. Remember, the views expressed here are those of the host and its guests, and do not necessarily represent the views of IBM. Until next time, over and